Well, we're here at the beach in Townsville. We're going to do a little bit of a rundown of the pros and cons of our PortaBote dinghy. A lot of people have been asking us questions about the dinghy since we started our channel, so this is long overdue, I think.
Yeah, it features highly in our comments section. So why don't we talk about the pros about it? We'll start on the positive and then we'll go to the negative, because like anything, there are some. All boating is compromise. So the first thing about a PortaBote is what it's constructed of. So this is polypropylene is what the boat's made of. So that means it's really lightweight. It's really strong. So when I say lightweight, if you take these seats out and that motor off, the whole rest of the boat is in the vicinity of 30 kilos, which is what, about 70 pounds.
It's so lightweight I can pull it up the beach by myself.
Well, you can definitely lift it, can't you?
Yeah, I can lift it. Look at that.
So I know some people looked at our footage where we're in Bathurst Bay, remember, and the wind was picking it up.
Yep.
And they were like, oh my God, that's unsafe. But of course, once you put people in there, it doesn't fly around. It's polypropylene is resistant to most alkalines, acids, chemical attack. I don't think it does well with chlorinated solvents, but if you're not mucking around with dichlorine methane, don't worry about it, all right? If you heat this stuff up to 300 degrees, 2 bits of polypropylene can be placed together and they'll weld together. And that means if you find like an old bleach bottle or something washed up on the beach and you've got a hole in this PortaBote, you can use a coal from the fire, put it on there, heat the two up, and it will bond, certainly enough of a repair to get back to wherever you're from. We've had this PortaBote, well, I've used it for a couple of years before I met you, but in your company, we've abused this thing for at least 2 years.
2 years. Well, no, more, because we used it in the Kimberley the first trip, so.
Okay, so it's been dragged up and down oyster rocks. It's been dragged, well, over just normal rocky beaches, hasn't it? It's been sunk a couple of times. Now, when I say it's been sunk, a PortaBote, I'll skip to a con just right now. A PortaBote is an open vessel, but it can't drain. It's not self-draining, and in fact, most small dinghies aren't self-draining. This is a flexible, hard dinghy, if you like. It's not inflatable. But when it sinks, even with a motor, it sinks to this level. All right? Polypropylene in itself, it's got a specific gravity of around about 0.9, and all that means is it's lighter than water. But if you just have polypropylene and you have, let's say, wooden seats and no foam, that motor and everything will be enough to sink it. But with this reserve buoyancy foam, we've got now closed cell foam in here. David helped us make these polycore seats, so there's buoyancy as well. So even with a motor, this thing will sink, but it'll sink to this point. So this dinghy's actually been sunk and towed through the water, and it was none the worse for wear. We just pulled it out. The motor was a little bit worse for wear, wasn't it?
You had to repair the motor because you sunk them and flattened their motor.
But for all intents and purposes, the dinghy was untouched. All right, so one of my very big considerations when I bought this PortaBote was crocodiles. Okay, I wanted a fairly large boat because we're going into crocodile water, and specifically, the crocodiles here in Australia that cause the most trouble, they're the most bold and aggressive, are the ones that have come out of their teenage years, if you like. They're the rebel crocodiles, and they're around about that 3 metre length. This PortaBote is 3.2 metres long. I think that's 14 feet in the old language. So it was about the size of the most troublesome crocodiles that we were going to meet when we were in the north of Australia. Of course, we saw bigger crocodiles, but those big old guys, they seem to be a little bit more wary. And there's no way that I could have fit a 3.2 metre inflatable boat on Marul. So when are people going to have to worry about crocodiles? When did we see them?
Pretty much, we saw them once we left Broome.
Okay.
Yeah, in WA, and then we've seen them the whole way to Townsville. So.
Yeah, and we saw one behind Hinchinbrook that would give you nightmares. It was a real dinosaur.
Big. Yeah.
So what you don't really want to be doing in crocodile waters is cruising around in a little inflatable, and people tend to sit out on the pontoons, don't they? They're not bunched inside an inflatable. They're often sitting out on the pontoons. They're about this far off the water. They're going slow. And I mean, on a 30-footer that we use, we'd only be able to use a a tiny little inflatable.
Yeah.
We just wouldn't be able to have anything else on there because unless we want to inflate it and deflate it all the time.
That would be a nightmare.
It'd be really, really hard.
Yeah.
And even the hard floor ones, you still have to stow that. If you're just going to have an inflatable floor one, it wouldn't last. We would have destroyed it.
Yep.
So crocodiles, you really have to consider that if you're going into Northern Australia when you are thinking about your tender. Most people use their tenders only to just sort of get from a yacht to shore. Mm-hmm. They want to get water or fuel. You know, it's only to ferry you back and forward. But when we went up there, you really had to think about going for an expedition.
You can't get up to the waterholes and things like that in your yacht. You've got to take quite a long dinghy trip to some of the places that you want to explore.
Yeah, that's right. And so you really have to think about those crocs.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, we did see people with inflatable dinghies like Hyperlon and stuff like that, and they were going quite well. They were large boats with larger dinghies.
Yeah.
But if you leave a soft inflatable dinghy in the water in crocodile country,
yeah, it's a chew toy.
It's a chew toy. And people will go up and they'll walk up waterfalls and they'll come back and they'll discover that some crocodile has come for a test bite or it's got some give.
Yeah.
They'll roll and thrash it and just rip your dinghy to pieces.
Yeah.
And that's going to put a dampener on your trip, I guarantee you. But crocodile won't chew this.
No, and I've seen some people say, well, that's fine, just take a spare inflatable, like a toy inflatable with you. I'm not hopping in a toy inflatable after a crocodile has chewed up my inflatable dinghy. Yeah.
So anyway, that's it. Crocodiles, we were considering crocodiles.
Yeah.
Now we mentioned that we use this as an expedition dinghy and that's because it's so stable, isn't it?
That's right.
So you've all seen the pictures of Pascal hopping and jumping around as she's like fighting a fish. And why don't we just show some more here, just for entertainment's sake.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a barra. Oh! And Queenie's going so hard. Playing who? Oh! Oh, it's a bloody Queenie. It's your old nemesis. Oh, look at the shark on it. Oh.
Sorry.
Oh. Oh. Hey! Oh, it's a Queenie. Oh, look at it go. All right, so we've established that it's quite stable and we think it makes a good dive platform because you can come up over the front.
Very true.
Really, really easily. What we haven't demonstrated is it would actually be quite easy to, a casualty in the water, not necessarily unconscious, but maybe with a cramp or something, you could pull them up and over there. Pascal might struggle with me, so hopefully I'm conscious and I can help her out. But I think I'd be able to get Pascal over and in even if she was knocked out. It's kind of a rare thing, but it's a consideration. I often stand when I'm driving the dinghy, and particularly if I've got Pascal on board, because what I want to do is push down on these parts of the dinghy, and I think it actually gives a better profile and we actually go a bit faster. Because what have we got on there, Pascal? 3 horsepower?
We've got a 3 horsepower on there, but you can have up to 5 horsepower. The transom will take up to a 5 horsepower engine.
That's right. So we've got a 3 horsepower and we sort of chug along pretty slowly. It has to be admitted.
Yeah.
If I'm in there, I can sort of, in favourable conditions, I can sort of plane this dinghy and do about 10 knots. Like if I'm on a flat river and whew, I'll be gone.
If I'm on there, I can go really fast.
Yeah, you're pretty light.
Yeah.
You know, if there's a bit of wind chop, then obviously you're going to slow down, but 8 knots is not unreasonable. So you can go pretty fast in this. That is a con for some people. That's a drawback that you can only go up to 5 horsepower.
Yeah.
But like I say, 5 horsepower will plane 2 people. These will take 4 people in Australia by law. All right, any more and you're exceeding their legal capacity. And that's because of the reserve buoyancy that's in here, or whoever makes the rules has decided that. What else can we say? That the reason they only need a small horsepower motor is because they slip through the water really easily, don't they?
Right, they're really efficient in the water.
So you've had no problem rowing this. You're getting really great at rowing.
Yeah.
I'm still a mediocre rower, but I can get across like quite a few knots of current, and I can definitely row in the wind.
Yes.
So as we're getting out of Crocodile water and further south, we might actually just leave the outboard behind and row more often. So this rows as well as a dedicated rowboat.
Yeah.
And I don't know, apart from other hard dinghies, you can't say that about many other tenders, can you?
You can't say that about inflatable, no way.
I don't think they row as well.
No.
I've seen some of the high pylon ones with the rigid bottom, and they row okay, all right, but they're heavy and they're expensive, but they're good. You know, high pylon's a good material. I think Sarian's got a high pylon dinghy, and they rate it. They reckon it's
dinghy's awesome. Yeah.
They reckon it's really tough.
Yeah.
But of course, you need more horsepower. You're going to use more fuel. We won't need to use fuel when we're in places we can row. Pascal often rows where I'm too lazy. She'll, oh, I'm going out for a row. So, you know, it's good. These are the oars that you use with this boat. They're not little paddles, okay? They're proper full-size oars. And they pole really well in the shallows.
Yes.
This boat, if you stand up front and you pole along, you can stand there, you can pole along, you can fish. Remember, we're hardcore into our fishing because that's how we eat. We eat off our fishing rods. And I found that that's another benefit. We're going to get into bow fishing, and so being able to stand up on these seats that David so kindly made for us, like they are strong.
They're so strong.
They're going to be a real benefit, I reckon.
Yeah.
Okay, and
the other thing is that's really great about our dinghy is that Troy always says we're the smallest yacht with the biggest dinghy, and
it's true most of the time, isn't it?
Yeah, we can store this thing. It basically takes about the same amount of space as a very big sup board.
Yeah, a sup board being a stand-up paddleboard that's taken the world by a craze for some reason. But so this folds, you know, the gunnels fold to the floor and then the floors fold together. These seats come out. That transom doesn't come out, it stays there. But then we just store the seats inside the dinghy with the oars, and then we put a wrap around it, the whole bundle is together. You know, if we did have to leave the boat for some reason, if we just cut those webbing straps, this thing would float free and we'd be able to hang on to it as a buoyant package. And even later just, you know, put it together. Even though it's full of water, we'd be able to put it together and lay in it. And we'd be sort of pretty shark-proof in that situation.
Yeah.
I can't imagine it would be any fun. The only reason that we would leave Marul is if she's a metre under us, or if there was an out-of-control fire.
Right.
And that's why when you watch our videos, there's fire extinguishers pretty much everywhere. And that raises another point. When I bought Marul, it did have an inflatable and I got rid of it really quickly. Where it was stored, and where I see a lot of them stored, is on the front of the coach roof. Now that dinghy was strapped down hard. It wasn't going anywhere necessarily, but it covered the hatch. Now, some people out there, if you've done as much compulsory safety training as I've had to, you'll notice that one of the conditions of a confined space, if you've done your confined space entry ticket, is one entry and exit. I know there's more to it, but it's met one of the conditions. So if we've strapped a dinghy over our front hatch, imagine if we're in the boat, there's an uncontrollable diesel fire coming from the engine space. Now that's right at the companionway. You're going to have to burn yourself to get out because you can't go through the front hatch. Yeah. So that's unacceptable. Yeah. We want 2 points of egress out of our little boat, all right? We don't want to be in a confined space. Yeah. So there was a lot of things, and these are the pros that we feel about it. It's tough. So far it's been crocodile proof, incredibly stable fishing platform. Yeah. It's repairable, it's rowable. I like it. What are the cons, Pascal? We've run into a few of them, haven't we?
Yeah, we've had a few cons.
Seats.
The seats are very, the seats that the boat comes with, they don't last. 3 years in the UV in Australia. Yeah. Maybe if you're in a cold climate you'd be all right, but the sun's just brutal here, so it really damaged our seats and cracked them, as you saw in the video.
Yeah, that's right. So the seats, and it must be admitted that like I treat this thing like a commercial boat. Yeah. You know, and Pascal's rough on gear, you can tell. Right? So the black seats, they made them black to try and give them as much UV resistance as possible. That made them awesome solar collectors. So, you know, we've had a few burned bums.
Yeah, it's hot. It's really hot.
We've got this white Emmerclad now that David recommended, which is a textured exterior rubberized paint. And it's I think it's fantastic.
Emma-Cart's been great, yeah.
It has been. So David,
Thank you, David.
you are a winner when you come to selecting materials. But the original seats, they did fail. And also in that last episode, if you haven't watched it, it's the Fiberglassing 101 where we learn about making these seats with David, but we also reinforced the transom. So it's quite thin aluminium that the transom was made out of initially, and it's failed 3 times and I've had to repair it.
Right.
So now I've just replaced the aluminium with really quite
really
heavy
strong
channel.
now. So basically the transom's probably not reinforced as well as it should be if you're going to use it like we use it, like a lot. And yeah.
I think if you were just like going to strap one to your RV, or you were just a really casual user on a sailing boat, I think it'd be fine.
Yeah.
But if you're going to live in the thing every day, and I mean really every day, we spend a huge amount of time out of every year actually out there fishing, exploring, just giving this thing hell. So it's actually looks pretty good, but that transom, just beef it up or just take some aluminium right angle with you when you go, if you did decide to buy one of these.
Yeah.
The channels that these C sections that hold the seats in have proven a lot stronger. I thought they would be the failure point, but they are just invincible. The aesthetics of the thing are a little bit strange.
Yeah.
So what that means is you'll often come back to your dinghy and you'll have like a couple of, well, most of the time old guys, and they'll be like this. Oh, what do you think this is for? Oh no, and then they'll be sort of explaining how it folds up, and they'll be wondering, and you'll walk up and they'll be like, oh, and they'll have like a host of questions. So if you like meeting new people like us, it's not really that much of a con, but it can eat into some of your time explaining how this thing works and what it is, because it really draws a lot of attention. You are not inconspicuous in a folding boat, which is why we want more of you to buy one, so that we won't stand out like a sore thumb quite so much. All right, Pasky, we said that it floods and it doesn't self-bail, and we've towed it a few times and it hasn't worked out that well for us.
Yeah, we don't, towing it when we're sailing is not really an option.
No.
We have tried doing it with a bridle.
A bridle. That works okay.
Yeah.
But
and a drogue out the back as well. Like if we bridle like a bucket out the back.
Yeah, that can work. So these, the way.
Some people ask about how we lift it. So I'll just grab that.
Bring it on there, Pasky.
Yeah.
So our strategy for lifting this PortaBote on board means that we use, everything sort of has a double purpose, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Except me. All right, so our painter, all right, the rope that's coming off the nose of the dinghy, we pass it through these 2 loops and then it just goes back and hooks onto a shark clip up at the front. Yep. And so all of these ropes now, a snap clip goes through there. And I just experimented with the length of all of these things to get the centre of gravity about right. And it's about the middle seat, just about the back of it. All right. So we lifted off that, but when it's not being used for that, would you just mind undoing that painter? When you don't have the lifting bridle like that, what you've got is these 2 ropes. Now you can clip a drogue, and sometimes we use a bucket with a shark clip, and you can hang that out the back. If you were fishing, that would actually slow your drift down. When you're towing it, if you don't want the dinghy overtaking you, you can just clip a drogue to the back of that and it hangs, and look, it's a ready-made bridle, so it does keep the nose quite straight. But we can also use it to lash things by using these rollicks, and then you've got a cord here, so when we fill up jerry cans of water, we can just tie them in place. So that's really great. All right, and Pasky, when we bring the boat alongside and we tow it alongside, these come in useful, don't they, as well? Yeah. So this comes up on a cleat sideways, and the painter goes forward and we wrap it around a shroud. But the way this length is like that, the boat has most of its weight held here, and the nose comes out. So what that means is it pushes itself away from the actual main boat. So we tie a fender to the seat, and this is again another point of buoyancy. But because it's tied to the actual boat, tied to the actual PortaBote and not the main boat, it doesn't ride up, it doesn't get kicked out of the way, and it just gently, every now and then, a wave will knock it against the boat, and it doesn't muck up our paint job. But we're pretty rough on our paint job anyway, so whatever. But when we're coming alongside other people's boats, we can just flip this fender out or flip it in.
Yeah. I just wanted to mention that we don't use this dinghy comes with 3 seats, and we don't use the front seat. We removed it. We found that it's more space for us to manoeuvre. It actually, I think it's got a better shape without the front seat in it.
We can certainly come in over the front quite nicely, and it folds
when we're
down.
diving, yep.
But that's I don't think PortaBote would endorse that, because we're straying away from their design. So that's just on the down low with us. When Pascal gets fired up with a fish, he needs all that space, all of it. I just stay right back here laughing.
That's another thing as well. The dinghy, you can fit a lot in it. So if you're going for a provision run, it's got way more space than most inflatables I've seen.
We set this up a lot, but I definitely remember the first time I got this boat, and when it was fresh out of manufacturing, it really wanted to stay closed, and it was resistant to opening, and still sometimes if it's been closed for a while, it still is, because plastic has some sort of memory.
And I can do it by myself now, but I still have a bit of a hard time doing it.
So you'll get better at it over time, and it's definitely easier with 2, but sometimes opening up and setting up your PortaBote can be a bit of a challenge. We do show it.
Yep.
But
with
really,
a piece of wood.
Yeah, they come with it. They come with a piece of wood that you use as a spreader, and then once you put the seats in, the battle's won, really. But getting it actually open by yourself and using the wood, it'll flick out, and this stuff is slippery.
Yeah.
If you do go a PortaBote, just beware that the first time you try and set the thing up, you're just like, this thing is sent to torture me. It is crazy. It does get easier, and it does get quick.
Yeah.
We can have it from fully stowed condition to in the water waiting for adventures in about 10 minutes. So the whole lot of putting the outboard and everything on and just coming back and forward for stuff we've forgotten takes about 15 minutes. And I mean, that's not something to be, like you go, oh, that's no problem at all. But if you've just sailed in somewhere, often you just want to relax. Well, if you're like me, you want to relax, have a cup of tea, and it'd be really nice just to jump into a boat and go. On larger yachts, I've seen these on davits, and that is the case. Ours is little, so we have to pack it up and redeploy it every time we go. If we're moving and it's fairly smooth, then we'll tow it. But like I say, if you tow it just with one painter and no drogue, if it's just like this with no engine on it, it yaws and carries on, and you
get what happened to us in the Montebello.
It's a real mongrel to tow if you use one line, but I've had much better results if you run 2 lines off to the quarters of your yacht as a towing bridle, which is the correct form. That's what you're supposed to do anyway, so don't take shortcuts. You've got to use those 2 lines, otherwise this dinghy will be a demon. And it will, if you don't tow a drogue in a following sea, it will run down seas, go sideways, want to broach, all sorts of stuff, so it pays to tow. Even if you just towed like a little BMX tyre behind it and you ran 2 bridles off the front, then you are able to tow it. But look, it's so easy to deal with. Just stow it if you're going to go for a sail. You'll save yourself some anxiety. What do you think, Pascal? Have we wrapped it up?
Yeah, I think a lot of questions that one of the questions that people ask us is, would we do it all over again with a PortaBote dinghy?
Yes.
And it's a definite yes.
Yes. We've talked about it, and I've said to Pascal, if we had a larger boat, the only exception I would make to having a PortaBote would be a nesting hard dinghy that we could sail. Yep. With a good drop board. You can actually get, I'm going to call it paraphernalia. You can get paraphernalia to turn these into a sailing boat. So you've got like an aluminium frame with drop down lee boards, and I think it's a gaff rig sail. So you can potentially sail this, but I'm unconvinced. If you look on the internet, you can actually see sailing kits for a PortaBote. So you can turn them into a sailing boat, but that's sometimes, and the aesthetics as well. Sometimes I see a beautiful little clinker dinghy getting along, being rowed by some old guy, and it's got a sail step and everything, or someone's sailing their little clinker dinghy out in a nice bay, and
really cute,
my heart feels a little envious. But otherwise, this thing, I think this would outperform a hard dinghy for everything else that we do. Diving out at the reef, fishing.
Yeah, getting back in, fishing, the stability.
Abusing the hell out of it.
Yeah, dragging it over oysters. Just all the pros, like I think they really outweigh the cons for us.
For us.
Yeah.
For us.
You have to make your own decision.
Yeah, and that's the whole thing, isn't it? We don't want to tell anyone what to do, but we definitely give our insights, and you can take that for what it's worth, and maybe weigh it up in your decision making.
Yeah, because it's probably not suitable for everyone.
No, I don't think so.
It's a little bit of a hassle to set it up.
Yeah, I think if you had a nice catamaran, with plenty of space, you know, pay the money, get a good hypalon, hard bottom dinghy and roar around, you know, with your 15 or 20 horsepower engine. You'll be overtaking us, you'll be going everywhere, having a ball. But
or if you're in a big boat and you've got the davits to safely have a tinny, then...
Well, you can safely have a PortaBote.
So that's true.
But again, it comes down to horsepower. You'll never go above 5 horsepower with a PortaBote. And, you know, for a lot of people, they love rowing. They like just pootling around. So I think it's a great dinghy.
Yeah, that's it.
Is that a wrap?
I think that's a wrap.
Let's go have coffee.
Thanks for watching. Give it a like if you enjoyed the video, and yeah.
We're done?
Yeah.
All right, cool.